And this is where the passengers jump in as he's driving by. Come on, get in. Hey everybody, welcome back to Rust Belt Diecast Customs. Today we're going to start work on this Matchbox London taxi. I don't know much about this vehicle, but it just looked like a lot of potential. There's a bunch of interesting little details on here that we can pull out, latches and stuff like that. And I have little license plates that I think might actually fit in that spot, which would be perfect. But she's a little scratched up, dented up, beat up. So we'll get this stripped down and figure out what we got to do with it next. But first, we'll get it torn apart. So now that it's been sitting in the stripper for a while, I'm going to get all the paint off. And I decided what I want to do with this car. So this is going to be a post-apocalyptic taxi cab. It's going to have some, bars on the windows and stuff, and it's going to be a little beat up, all kinds of, different paint details, maybe even missing a door. Maybe I'll cut a door out. That'd be kind of cool. But I'm going to be using a technique with my rotary cutting wheel that I picked up from Bare Metal Hot Wheels. So we'll get him rinsed off and get him ready to get chopped up. So now that we have the door off, everything's filed down, nice and relatively smooth. Looks like the door got ripped off in an accident or something like that. But it's going to work out really well for him because he'll be able to just jump in and out of the car, no problems. So now we're going to move forward with this technique from Bare Metal Hot Wheels, and I'll link his channel in the little tab there above the video. So I'm using this little rotary bit on the Dremel, and we're just going to be hitting it down into here to ding up the car a little bit. So let's do that. It's a lot of work. So now I think we got her where we want her. As with doing these techniques that I find from other people, again, this one was a technique from Bare Metal Hot Wheels, and I tend to develop it a little bit more so it suits my style. So what I was doing was actually dragging the bit along these parts that I think it gave it a little different look, more like what I was going for. So now we're just going to hit it with the wire brush, and that should kind of piece it all together, make it look a little less lumpy and a little more dented. There she is. You can see all the metal filings everywhere, so wear glasses when you're doing this. But yeah, so now it's a little smoother. That kind of knocked down all the rough edges. So now we'll start painting. What I did here was paint over what we did, and then I'm going back with the brush now that it's drying and just kind of drawing across it. What I'm trying to make it look like is that this maybe was a taxi before, got really beat up in the post-apocalyptic world, and he is reclaiming it and went and painted it yellow, which is probably the worst color you could paint it in the post-apocalyptic world. But hey, he's trying to get some cab fares here. He's got to work. I'm going to come back in and do a lot of aging and rust and things like that throughout this vehicle, but for right now it's just kind of slapping this on, slapping it off. While the body is drying, we're going to do some work on the interior. Now, in order to get that look like the driver's side door is gone, we'll need to remove some of this material. So I just have a nice sharp blade on my knife, and this usually goes through pretty well. And you really just need to remove this portion of it. You just kind of wiggle until she goes. And then I'm actually going to take out the entire back section here because I think it's not going to show because the back door is there, so it's really not a big deal to get that off. And then we can take this and just slide it right back through. There we go. So that's removed. We'll do a little filler on the seat because, as you can see, that's kind of inevitable that was going to happen. So we'll put some of this, get some putty filler that will fill in the seat, smooth it out, and then it'll look like the door's gone. Now that our little cheese guy is dry, we're gonna add a little bit of a darker wash to it. Now you can buy a wash, but I just make mine. It's just black acrylic paint and some denatured alcohol. I use that instead of paint thinner just because thinner is just so aggressive. So this is nice, and you don't have to smell it then either. So I'm just putting it in here. Any parts that got the holes in them. And then we're just gonna let it dry for a little bit, just a couple seconds. Especially paying attention to the bottoms and like any places where it would be raised, curved edges, anything like this where dirt would settle. And as you can see on this side, I already started doing it, and you can do it as many times as you want to get the effect that you're looking for. You see, love this stuff because it just flows right into everything, which is really what you're looking at. We're looking to do at least. And darken up some parts a little bit more. Looks like a cheetah or something now. So now I can go back to the original parts and just kind of blot a little bit just to get some out. So then you can go back over it again if you want. I think the lower parts need a little bit more around the wheel wells. I might actually chew out some of these wheel wells because I want it to be, might put new wheels on it. I don't know. We'll see if those other wheels look okay once I get all the detailing done. You'll see that there's a lot of change here. So what I started doing and what I'm going to do throughout is get these protective grate fence kind of things on some of the windows. And to do that, I'm just using this old screen. It's actually from my house. We replaced some windows, so got this old dirty screen. So I was using that for this. I also did some work on the interior, so you can see I put some of the screen up in here, and then the floorboards is the screen too, and it's kind of all muddied up and junky, so that's all going to get hit with some rust. But I just wanted to show a little bit of how I'm doing this. So I wanted to put some protection on the grill because that's the whole point. You know, post-apocalyptic, you need some protection, especially this guy's a cab driver. Oh, and before I move forward, for all of my British friends, I know that yellow cabs are not a thing in England, but there's a whole backstory to this guy, the reason why this cab is yellow. So stay tuned for the backstory, or read it in the description. So we just get it in place and hit it with some glue, just regular super glue, and then we'll be able to adjust the sides and everything once it's set. So you don't need a ton, but you do need it in the contact points. So I think that gives it just a really cool kind of Mad Max post-apocalyptic feel. So next we'll work on the windshield, and that's going to be similar to this. Man, he got a shot there. So the whole aesthetic here that I'm going for is that he found this car, this cab, built it up, and then just spray painted the whole thing yellow. And again, check out the backstory for the reasoning there. And so now I'm going to work on the windshield, but I did a little something else here, a little trick that I got from Bare Metal Hot Wheels as well. Let's pop the link up again. So I'm drilling out the holes for the headlights because the headlights are smashed out. So I just used a bit, started out with a really small bit just as a pilot hole, and then use this bit to widen them out a little bit. And then I just hit it with our black wash again, which again was just black enamel paint. mixed with some denatured alcohol to thin it, but not make it a thinned paint. So then I just hit that in there, and it gives it a nice look like they're hollowed out headlights. And I'm going to put some kind of a grill on the front here too. I'm not sure, maybe like a bull bar kind of thing. I got to look through my trucks and see what I can rip off. So now to do the windshield, I'll show you how I'm doing this. I have my grate here, and I got to find my safety glasses because this stuff flies all over the place. So I want to get it, I just want to cut it so there's an edge to work from. So I have two edges there. So I want to get it so that it is the same width. So just kind of freehand it here. So I want to get it a little bit wider. And what I'm doing here is I'm cutting so that the little ribs or ridges or whatever, the cross pieces, are exposed on the sides. And then you can also take and like push in sections of this so that it looks a little wobbly, almost like it's been smashed and stuff. Get out some of those just because those will cut me. So let's use this part. So you can see it's just as wide, and now I need it just as tall. So I want to get down into this groove here. So there's like a groove that would be perfect if I was doing this in real life. I would set it right in that groove. So I want to go a little bit over the roof. So I want to smash it down. So there it is, sitting in that little groove where the hood would be. And then what I want to do is get that part glued down, and when it dries, then we'll be able to smush the sides so that they make good contact. So I'm gonna just get the glue down in that groove so it's through the mesh, and then we'll let it dry. Back a little bit like that, let it dry, and then we'll go and fix the rest of it together. Now that we have the grate set up, it's glued in place, now we can start to kind of bend it. So I want to use a couple different instruments to do this, because you want to make sure that it's kind of messed up on the edges. So like you can push that in and have this little piece kind of sticking out there, kind of push these down. And if you take a couple, like a little tweezer thing, just the edge, we can just bend it down. So this is the light that's up here that would normally say taxi, I guess, on these. So we want to bend around that. And this stuff is a little difficult to bend. We could pull out a couple pieces like that. And then I want to kind of trim that down so it doesn't look so intentional. I want it to look really like it's been getting beat up over the time, because this guy has been driving this cab in post-apocalyptic world for a while. So now that that's there, we're good to go. Because it's secure down here, we don't need to add any more glue, so we can go ahead with the yellowing effects. But I think I want to make it so that he can see out here, so I'm just going to take the tweezers and kind of spread open part of this like that. Like his vision's going to be kind of skewed. I want to mess this up a little bit throughout the whole thing there. So it looks like it's been, he's been hit with bricks or whatever's fallen along the roadside. This guy's kind of a road warrior. So now I'm going to take my yellow and just real light, kind of a dry brush style. I want to get that yellow paint on there to show that it was painted at some point, and now it's just been kind of neglected. So he is a road warrior out there. So I think that looks really good like that. And then we're going to take some of the black, our black wash here again, and just drizzle it in there. Just dirty that up just a little bit, just enough to make it grimy. So I'm really happy with how that turned out. That looks cool. So we'll move on with some more of these little details. I have this like dollhouse furniture, I guess, that I found somewhere, and I just looked at this, and it looks like it would be cool on the roof there, kind of like covering up part of this. So I'm gonna cut this off and see how it looks. Little modification once it cools off. That should look pretty cool. A little bit more work here, and I think we got it. That might look cool. I wanted to add a little extra protection to the driver's side here. So I have these are just finish nails that you would use in a finish nail gun, like for molding or something, like with woodworking. So I thought it kind of looks like corrugated steel. So I was gonna cut it down, grease it up, and put it on the side. So I'll just hit that with the Dremel to cut them down. So I really jacked up this, what's going to represent corrugated steel. I'm going to put a nice heavy coat of black on it because this thing should be really grimy, you know, on the side of the car and all. And as you can see, I got this up here, just placement. It's not glued in or anything. So that's what that's going to look like. I might flip it. So we'll let that sit for, I guess upside down. Nope. Let it sit for a minute and get its bearings, I guess. Yeah, maybe this way. I like that way better. Covers up less of the windshield. And just dab it off a little, and you got that nice oily greaser kind of look. And we're gonna definitely hit this with rust because it's corrugated steel. I wanted this to look like you just ripped it off a fence or something and slapped it on the side. I decided to do corrugated steel across the front here too. Give it a little added protection and look a little meaner. So with these nails, all you gotta do is figure out how far you want to go and snap off a chunk like that. So that's 3 nails wide. And I think I should go 4 actually now I'm looking at it. So you just get to the 4th nail and bend it. Go. Yeah, that's gonna be cooler. And I'm gonna really hack this one up because he's gonna be like driving through hordes of chaos. Oh, how cool. Some of you might remember this little piece. It was the roof from a previous build. It was the Matchbox 56B Fiat 1500. And the roof actually fell off, so I ended up turning it into a convertible. And this is the roof, and I want to do it kind of like it's a structural support, sort of protecting the vehicle from above, but also it's a little luggage rack, so it's a little something that he might actually have on the vehicle. So I want to keep this sort of original, but just make it oily. So I didn't want to add, I wanted this to be kind of like something maybe he found along the road and decided to put it on top for some protection and added, you know, luggage space for his customers. So I just want to add some grime and grit to it. And using this wash, I mixed up kind of a little bit thicker wash this time because it is supposed to grime it up. So that's good, and get little chunks and stuff in there. That's perfect. Now that all of our oily wash has been set up and dried on our panels here, these are representing the steel portions of the vehicle. additions, if you want to say that. I'll show you the rust technique. I've done this in a few videos before, but I like to do it. So we're just going to take a little bit of the brown using this like chunk of paper as a palette, and what you want to do is get a little brown, a little orange, dab it off so you're getting kind of a dry brush thing. And you want to make sure you get lots of brown and orange in there. So then we just kind of go along the edges here, and you want to dab and pull off again with your finger just to lighten it up a little bit. But we're trying to get into edges, anything that kind of sticks out that might be rusty. And I like to find these spots that the grime kind of built up on and really work those, because that gives it a nice sort of bubbled rust look, which I love that look. And when you get into the corners, you can squeeze it a little more like that, so that it'll actually dip into these little corners. Pull it out. It could just be a little chunk of rust. You can also take and smear it like that. So you can see how that's already coming together as a nice rusty look. So I think that's a good look for that piece. Now for these, like I was saying, we're gonna go a little overboard on the rust, just because these are, I'm picturing these were taken off of a fence. It's like corrugated steel kind of. So these were probably taken off of a fence. I want to really get in where there's like cuts and grooves and stuff in here. We can kind of streak it a little bit. Get that sort of orange in there. Get some into these to pull out those details, kind of swipe it through. So it looks like it's kind of really, like it got deep in there. See, I'm using the sponge to kind of dig into it a little bit more. Really pull out the paint like that. Now, last piece that I have here, it's like the top of the windshield, but it's going to cover up the top part there from damage. So this thing has been through war. You want to really hit the edges of this, especially because I scratched this up really good with the Dremel tool. It takes the paint so nicely. It gets really in all the grooves, the little crevices, gives it that real authentic kind of look. I like that. You just want to get the shine off too. There's still some spots on here that are kind of shiny. There's not a lot of shine with rust. Now that we have the orange and the brown kind of built up on these pieces, we'll go into the actual car, because I wanted to get a couple of rusty spots on like the edges of the windows, the grating. I feel like there'd be some rust on these pieces. So now that we have the rust elements kind of filled in here, it's really coming together. It's really looking like an old beater post-apocalyptic cab. So now we'll move on to the base. Now that we have it broken down, you can get a better look at the interior. So this was the grimy, crusty finish that we did on the seats and the floorboards in the back, and then this is the floorboards in the front. So this is the front seat, and then this is the little panel that we had to do. So because when this goes in, there's a lot still showing as far as the seats. What I had to do was make this little side panel, and the way I did it was I have these little pieces of plastic. You've seen me use them before, but these are just like chunks from a, like a school folder, plastic school folder. I guess you could substitute probably styrene too, but the stuff's already black, so it actually fits in really nice with things like this. So I just folded a couple over and made that brace piece for it, and then added some of the fencing, and you can see the seats go in where they're supposed to. It covers up that side piece that was missing, and it actually gives it more of a, it adds to the look. It almost looks like it's protection because the door is missing. So when you put it in like that, so it looks like it's a little extra protection because the door is missing, and you could picture the passenger can just hop right in there. When I got the pieces finished here, I found that it made a little more sense to have this attached to the bumper as opposed to the grill, so you can see where the bumper is. But the bumper, as you can see, is not flush, so now I need to trim that down so that I can attach the front, I don't know, ram bar or whatever you want to call that. So we're just going to get out the Dremel, get our glasses on, and just trim that down so it's nice and smooth and flush. Now that we've that part done, I'm just going to take some sandpaper, clean it up. And this also roughs it up nicely so the glue takes. Alright, so I can see it sits much better on there. I'm taking, just bend it slightly, get it to sit even better. Super gel glue. Get a few dots on. Really dunk it into this spot here. So the main contact. Just line it all up. Remember which side was the top. There we go. And get it on there. Don't worry about it leaking out the bottom. It can very easily be cleaned up. What's nice about this gel is it fills the gaps. That's what we need to do on this one. Just fill the gaps. It's already starting to harden. We want to take a lollipop stick on the bottom. One more chance to reposition it before it sets. And there it is. So that is going to be the smasher ram bar on the front. And once it dries, we'll be able to take the whole thing off. It'll come right off with the grill and everything. There we have it. There's the front end. And I also attached one to the rear bumper. So we'll just go and fill in some of the rust and stuff on the sides. But that's the basic technique there. And an extra piece that I just made just in case one of the other ones didn't turn out, so I added it to the driver's side door there, like I said. So it'll be a little more added protection for him. And it's kind of a cool weapon because you can see when you open the door it would have this like spike thing out the side. So, he's a lover, not a fighter, but you never know in this crazy world. I'm a little bummed because we're getting towards the end of this, and this has been a really fun build. I did end up adding that extra protective piece above the windshield. I said I wasn't going to, but after it got finished and kind of rusted out, it just looked too cool not to use. So I added that on the top. Right now what I'm doing is going through on the wheels and just dusting them up a little bit, making them look a little more apocalyptic. And again, it's the exact same stuff. It's just the brown and orange. So I'm just slopping the brown on, letting it dry and wiping it off. And it looks pretty similar to road dust and stuff. And then I'm gonna wash these with the black wash to give them a little bit more of an old, worn out, oily kind of look. So I'm just going through with my finger and wiping off some of it, majority of it. And it's nice going through with your fingers. Adds almost like a tread pattern look too. You don't have to wipe that much off the face, because that'll kind of be where most of the mud and stuff would store up. And then I'm just taking just the tiniest touch of orange and hitting the hubs there So you can see that just gives a little touch of rust. That's all those would be. Those would most likely be stainless. So they're not going to have a ton of rust, but on the edges that maybe get chipped or damaged from the road, those would definitely have a little bit of rust on them. So pop that with finger. And there she is. And then when they dry up, they look like this. It's worn out tires. So that's it. We're all done here at Rust Belt Diecast Customs. Another really fun build. I love the way this turned out, from the fencing all over to the sidebar to protect the driver's door, all the way around, the beat up back, the roof off the Fiat 1500 that we built. I called it the Lemonade car. So that's the roof off of that car that got turned into a convertible. So that's the luggage rack now for this guy. Some more fencing on the side, the cut off passenger door, and back out around to the front, the broken headlights. Just a fun build. And then for the interior, the oiled up, grimed up interior, perfect for the apocalypse. The dirty, dusty wheels, and of course this craziness, the big front panel and the sides, the interior, the floor below the driver and the passenger, the fence in the back, and the corrugated steel bumpers all around. So let's get this guy back together. This will be fun. The wheels are weird because they just rest in there. So stretch them out. So they just rest in. So this is the front of the vehicle, this is the rear. And the interior sets in here and kind of pops in, but it goes on the, sets in the rear wheels, and then the body sets in the front wheels. So it kind of just all just pops itself together. Just like that. Perfect. And now, get our screws back in from when we tapped it before. The bottom, how that looks so nice, all nice and oiled up. Grimy. The whole thing is just grimy. Love it. So this started out something totally different. So there we are. The post-apocalyptic taxi cab. Ready to roll. With Ian Smealt is the proprietor of this vehicle. So before we do the final reveal, let's take a look back now on what this vehicle used to look like, the London taxi from Matchbox. And now here it is, the post-apocalyptic taxi cab, driven by Ian Smealt. This thing was an absolute blast to build. I had the most fun that I've had building any vehicle on this channel with this car. Some things worked out, some things didn't, but overall it was crazy. Just look at that bumper, it looks awesome. And this is where the passengers jump in as he's driving by. Come on, get in. And then the roof rack all rusty up. The kind of afterthought here turned out really cool. Love that interior too, all oily and grimy. And of course that front bumper is just mean. This thing is a beast. I love it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe if you're new. Like, comment. I love talking with you guys and hanging out and just enjoying everything that you have to offer on this. So thank you so much for watching again. And we'll see you next time on Rust Belt Diecast Customs.